I am Kelly Forden, and I'm here today with Ananda Lima. Ananda is the author of Craft Stories I Wrote for the Devil, Tor Books 2024, and Motherland, Black Lawrence Press 2021, winner of the Hudson Prize. Her work has appeared in American Poetry Review, Poets.org, Kenyon Review, Electric Literature, and elsewhere, and is forthcoming in Ghosts of Where We Are From, an anthology of dark fiction by Latin American authors. First talked about meeting last fall, or at least I reached out to Ananda last fall after I read an arc of the book, and I really wanted to talk to her about a story, and just didn't come together until now. But I have been shocked, and not in a good way, how prescient this book feels given what we're now going through in the United States and the immigrant experience. I highly recommend people read this book. It is frightening in a way how it feels like it could have been written yesterday, and it's, mid-July in 2025. It's already been out for over a year. So anyway, I am thrilled to welcome Ananda Lima to the program. I love this story so much, and I love the whole book. I got the book here. And I sort of read, and I think you talked to someone online about it, and I read a short interview with you about the first line. Can you tell us a little bit about how the first line came to you?
Yeah, so the first line, I saw a call for stories that was just a one-line story. So I just tried to come up with lines, which was fun. And then I came up with the first line of the story, the one that stayed up to today. Then once I had that line, I was like, oh, okay, this is not a one-line story.
Right. There is a lot to this.
Exactly. I was like, oh, okay, I think I have something else going on here.
Then did you know, or did you, when you get into a situation like that, I'm just opening up the book to the same page too. Do you let yourself just go and see what happens next?
Yes, I feel like I say that not to sort of make everybody happy, but I really think it's true. I do have friends who outline and stuff, and they're great writers, and that actually works for them. But for me, pretty much the vast majority of my writing I discover on the page. So once I had the sentence, I was like, oh, okay, I have to follow this, but I didn't really know where it would end up.
And just as a reminder, so people know what the sentence is, she devoured tiny Americans that came out of the vending machine. Is the sentence. So
Exactly. That was the one.
it is really fun to do that. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I wrote a story one time, same thing, like a prompt like that. And I wrote, I forget what name I used. Gary so-and-so woke up one morning and found that he had grown a third arm.
I love it. That's so good.
And I was like, oh God, where do you go from there? But you made this work. So when you started coming up with the tiny Americans, because I counted 16 and I started thinking, okay, these are just these are what we think of, all the different Americans you can think of, right? But did it come to you, all of those different types, or as you were revising the story, we've got the cowboy and we have the girl in the pink pussy hat and the MAGA guy and a lot of the person working at McDonald's.
Yes, I feel like a lot of them came just very organically. Maybe at the end, there was maybe one merger and maybe like a little one or maybe even only one rearrangement of the order. But they came very naturally. In the beginning, they were more, I don't know, stereotypical, which was
Yes.
fun. Like I was having
Like they are like archetypes, but it wasn't so spot on that they didn't seem real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was really fun. And I think something that you brought up, I think even though like we just had a very brief chit chat, you talked a little bit about the story now. I thought,
Yeah.
oh, that was so perceptive because it was very sad as well as funny for me as I was writing it. And I was very sad at that time. Like there's sadness.
I mean, it's just ongoing.
Yeah.
I don't even
You know,
think every writer I know, I can't think of a writer or an artist who is not very sad right now.
right.
Yeah.
He was the same then, very much in similar way. And it was, you go on the waves, and I was in a very sad wave.
Did you
And
write it during the first administration?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And I wrote it when I was, as a poet and as a writer, my thing, images that get stuck in your head, right? Like, so it may not be a plot or whatever, but what was in my head at the time was the kids, because that was blasted in the news all the time, in the detention centers, in those sort of warehouses,
Right.
fences with the blankets, which were metallic. I don't even think they have the blankets anymore. Who knows, But it was like this metallic
I remember seeing those. Yeah.
emergency blankets, right? So that picture was in my head a lot, and I was very sad around those images, right? So when I was typing it, there was both the sadness and also I was having fun. It was like funny,
Yes,
at
it
the
is.
same time.
I mean, it is. Every time she pops one in her mouth, I was just giggling.
Right, right. And I was like, oh, this is so I was having both at the same time. And the first Americans were very stereotypical, and I was kind of having fun with that. But I knew that the sort of the tenor, the tone of what was behind the story was darker, and they kind of needed to shift and complicate a little bit who was coming out of the machine, which was very natural. I just had the sort of feeling, and it sort of happened on the page as I was writing it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as I was reading it, I noticed how, she tries to avoid looking people in the face or looking in their eyes, because that is when you can keep that distance, you can just view them as whatever stereotype you want, when you see them. So, what about her colleagues, Rosa and Patricia? How did they come into the story for you when you were writing?
Yeah, so they were fun because the main character who's going through this thing is very sad for her own reasons as well. Uh,
Yes.
right? So
And
it's
everybody will have read the story, so we can have spoilers and everything.
so she was a very sad character, which I thought was very true. I didn't want her to be like peppy or anything, even though I was having fun with the little Americans coming out. And the other characters came out very naturally of me just inhabiting that hospital environment, but they had like fun voices, you know? I thought of they had a different energy from the character, and they were a little bit funny, which which I like too. Patricia brings the food, and Rosa is centered, I guess.
Yes, yes. And they're just kind of at first, so I had to read it a couple times because I was thinking, okay, that's so nice, blah, blah, blah. But then I realized, oh, wait, this is like a philosophical. I mean, with the way they're responding to this situation is kind of like, eat something, you'll feel better, or just enjoy it, take it easy, don't think about it too much. And it's so true. Like when you're wrestling with something that is just fundamentally disturbing, so many people are like, did you want to get your nails done? Or,
Right, right.
yeah, or eat something,
And
so
I love that you brought those characters, because when I talked about the stories in the past, the other things are so loud that they don't come up in the conversation. But I think they were so important, uh,
yes,
like this counterpoint. They're also immigrants, but they are going through things in a different way. And you don't know what they know, which I think is very true, or what they think, like whatever I think is reality out there, but you don't know. It's not that you don't know other people's opinions. You don't even know what they think is true, or,
and you don't even know, like, what they've experienced so far or what
Right.
they might experience, and then yeah, you're hesitant to bring it up, yeah.
Right. So I loved the with the characters, both their reactions, and that it's not clear how much they know of the actual contents of the machine, and whether they think that is weird. you know?
Exactly. Like they never point directly, because I kept looking at it and thinking, are they actually really seeing what she is eating in this machine? But you never do say. You never say.
Yes,
Yeah.
which for me was very fun, because I love this kind of thing as a reader and as a writer, where there is a little bit, the floor is a little bit unstable. So I
Yeah.
love that thing, and I think it fits the sort of vibe of the situation. But also, it's something as a writer, even outside of the story itself, like how do you make that work? So that took a lot of, I think, in a story like that, is how much do you explain and to what level of detail? If I had like a whole, like very explicit discussion of the rules of how this works, I would not being able to do that with those characters where they have these conversations, but you don't know, are they talking about the actual people in the machine or like some chips in the machine? What's going
Right. Right. What
you
is
know?
happening? Right. And you don't know, you don't specifically say where they're from. Is that
Yeah.
something?
Patricia is from Brazil, but I didn't say it.
Because she was using, I mean, she was feeding her food
Exactly.
that she, right? Yes.
Yes, yes. And then so for me, it was also very natural. And I'm like, oh, you can kind of deduct, but people are not saying to themselves these things
Right.
that, right?
Right.
But I feel like in other stories now, I'm doing that more often. And I think in the book, for example, there's this story of the heaven.
Yes.
The person doesn't mention, and they might not even remember where
You
they're.
know, and that reminds me to mention, I mean, if you could just briefly say, like, the book is, a whole world, a whole connected, but can you just describe it really quickly? Because I usually would do that at the beginning, but this is a good segue.
Oh, yes, perfect. So the book is a collection of short stories, and you can read the stories individually. They exist on their own. Has this meta narrative of the writer of the stories, who's like a Brazilian lady, curly hair,
Right.
and
Wonder where
she,
you got that
right?
idea.
And she's a writer, right? And that story sort of gets started with an encounter the writer had with the devil in her 20s, a different time. She had this
Yes.
little thing with the
The
devil.
whole book gets started with that, right? Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then, they remained friends, and she kind of
I
keep.
loved it so much. I loved it. Because this story ends differently at the Kenyon Review Online
Oh,
than it does in the book, because in the book she has this meta conversation with the devil at the end, and discussion of this. So people should definitely read the book because there is so much more to it than we're going to go over today. And every now and then I'll have these discussions and wish that I had changed the format so I could talk about the whole book. But anyway, you're just getting a small bite.
that's
Literally.
very good.
So they are there. But I mean, are you thinking about things, since this is about craft? Did you realize that they were giving these pat answers? I mean, did you have them come in just to sort of give these pat answers, or did that just sort of naturally happen?
This is one of the story. I think that's true in general for me in my writing, but I think this story in particular even more because it varies, but like it varies. I feel like this one was very intuitive. It just kind of like I was seeing it as it came out,
That's
but
amazing.
which has been really fun.
Yeah.
But and with those characters, the voice, like the way their voice and their approach to the situation were very natural. But I do remember when I was writing the dialogue between them, I was like, "Oh, this is fun." Like I'm not mentioning what they see. So I saw as very at the very moment I was writing, I was like, "Oh, this fun thing is happening where we don't know that they're in the same level
Right.
on the reality of what's
Of
happening."
understanding of what,
Yes.
so they can see what's going on with her hands.
And they never went to the machine with her, like, so they're just like hearing what she says.
Right.
And
And they're like, "You need some real food. Stop eating
yeah,
from the vending machine," not
exactly.
knowing. So the miscarriage then comes around, and that's revealed to be the underlying cause of her distress and physical symptoms. But then it's complicated by the situation in America, too. And I thought, yeah, and there's so many complicated things to discuss. I don't even know where to begin because she doesn't want to be with her ex-boyfriend anymore because he's like, oh, we could just try again. And she's thinking, why would I ever want to do that? Because we have had this little Brazilian baby, and then I was thinking about how, the baby doesn't make it, it's a miscarriage, but also there's a huge failure to thrive for immigrants right now in America. And so what a metaphor for that as well. So I guess my question is complicated too. Let's just take her ex-boyfriend first. What is she thinking about him? Because she just is like, you're out of here. Goodbye.
That's right. Thank you so much for reading so beautifully. I'll talk a little bit of a couple of things related to the boyfriend, and I'll come back to him specifically. But I think a lot of these things, like the miscarriage, the eating, the vending machine, what I had so much fun with this story is that a lot of them have very, very strong allegorical pull. So and there was a lot of images that were there with me, and these very sort of like in your face, things. But then I used them, but I didn't stick to the thing, which was really fun. So I let them sort of sort of merge and be complicated and not stand for one thing. Even though they do, they kind of don't, which for me was one of the things that made me happiest with this story. You're totally spot on with the miscarriage and the baby and the child, because the sort of emotional, the biggest thing that was happening behind the scenes with me was I was so upset about these things. Like this story
Yes.
really is a story that is driven by those images that were going around. The blankets, the packaging. It's funny how things really, but they are the same. So the miscarriage and the pregnancy, is just such a grief and sadness, and it's such a loss, and which was talking very much about the grief of these children, and people being like doing that, putting that, like there was like 2-year-olds with no accompaniment, like the 5-year-old
Right.
taking care of. It was just like insanity.
It's horrific. Yeah.
Yes. So the miscarriage really helped carry some of that sadness and some of that, I would say family, but that can be any affectionate relationship, the breakage of it, right? Senseless ending of it. And so there was that. And then there was a lot of things with the body that worked very well, like with the ingestion, right? Every day is happening inside her, right?
Yeah, and she's ingesting the American experience. She's ingesting the actual
And she
Americans.
was right.
Yeah.
So there was this very physical thing that was common to the two experiences. So when I'm writing, I'm not thinking about that kind of stuff at all, like not at all. But I do have the images start talking to each other, and after I write it, I'm like, oh yeah, I see this. This is talking. They're talking to.
That's so cool. It's almost mystical because you mentioned that in the other interview too. I'll find out where it was and I'll give a shout out to that Substack. But how you let the images, I forget the term you use, float around and then
Like marinate.
marinate.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yes, because I feel like I have very high respect and admiration for people who write op-eds and stuff like that. I'm very bad at those things. So for me, fiction is not just like telling the story, but it's me thinking through things in a different way.
Yeah.
So instead of coming and already having the thoughts, I'm actually having the thoughts with the images. And
how do you allow yourself to, so say you have these archetypes, you have this, and you're realizing in your mind that it's a good allegory, and then you have to let a little bit of control go because it's just too spot on. Is that hard to let that control go?
So it's actually, I think it took me a while to get to where I am now, which is I'm not thinking like, oh, there's an allegory and I have to try to do this thing. It's more like, oh, when I'm writing, even like when I'm halfway through the story, I'm not thinking, oh, this is an allegory and I have to let it complicate.
Spin out. Yeah.
That's not how I'm thinking. I'm more thinking like, oh, this is fun. Oh, this is interesting.
Right.
Because a couple of things. One is that I feel like when you are a humble person, right? Or if you are a woman or whatever, you come into a sort of a learning space very humble.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, these people say this thing is good, so I should learn to see it as good, and this thing is bad. Let me learn, because you're like humble,
You're ready
right?
to take it
Yeah,
in. Yeah.
like you want to
Yeah.
learn.
You come with like so much trust at first, right?
Exactly. But then eventually I sort of really, that was one of the biggest things for me as a writer that was the most productive, is I just realized, hey, that's fine for these people, but no, I do not like this thing. And I do like this thing. And that is fine. And my opinion is just as worthy as anybody else's. Right.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And also, the biggest one is if I like something, that means somebody likes it. They can't say nobody likes this.
Right.
Read it with a
Right.
prologue, whatever it is that you like. If you
Yeah.
like it, nobody can say that nobody likes this because you
Right. Even if it's just you and like three other people in the corner. Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And even if it
Yeah.
was just you, but it never is.
Right.
No.
That's right.
um,
That's a great way to look at things,
right.
actually. I'm going to think about that for a while
Right.
because
It's like
mhm.
I like it. That means somebody likes it. So
Right. Or like I wrote it, I needed to say it
yes.
and
Exactly. So here's the thing, like you write it, and sometimes if you sort of work on this, you start to actually going, "Oh, I like this. This is fun." You know?
right.
Oh, this is moving or
I
whatever.
like how many times you've used the word fun because a lot of times people learning the craft will forget it's supposed to be fun.
Right? And for me that's a big thing because I think I have a particular taste, right? And if I'm trying to like predict other people, it's not going to work. I have to see what is working for me. I'm like a niche person. so
Right, right,
so, uh,
right.
So when I'm writing, I'm more like, oh, this is fun. This is fun. Oh, this is interesting. That's kind of how I'm thinking as I'm putting the text down. So I didn't think, oh, this is such a big allegory and I'm worried. Another thing is that I found out over time that I have quirky tastes. So I'm often not worried about something coming out too mainstream or whatever. That's not a worry.
Right. That is a great thing. I mean, that is yes, because I think people are too worried about that now. They
Right?
really wanna get published and
Yeah, so I'm like
right,
following that, and then I know that if I follow that, something is gonna get complicated, and if I actually just let it grow and not try it and direct it from some previous directive that I have, things are gonna become interesting, even if I have to work on it or whatever.
I was gonna say, like, sometimes do you have to wait? Will you ever back yourself into a corner and then "Wait, this is really fun, but I don't know where to go from here, so I'm
It's
gonna let
like,
it
it makes
sit."
no sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. It did not happen with this story because this story was just
It's like a gift.
plot and movement. Yes, it was just like, whatever adjustments were very little because it came with a shape, you know?
And I heard you say that your editor I mean, I think it was that same
Yeah,
interview,
yeah, yeah.
you didn't have to do anything with this one story. She had ideas for the other stories, but not this one.
Yes, the thing about this story, which is so funny, is first of all, I love my editor. She's brilliant. She's the best reader I've ever had. So I really lucked out. But she doesn't love the story.
Really?
And she didn't have that many things to say, which is totally fine. She's this is a testament of what a great editor she is. She raised some questions and then she's like, just do with it what you will. But she didn't have so many tweaks because it was a very hard story for her. Like she was like, this is just, I don't know. But this is the story. One of the stories that I get most sort of beautiful, passionate reactions. I remember when it first came out in the Kenyan Review, somebody, a very lovely writer, tweeted like, "This story was written for me personally." you know,
Oh, I
um,
mean, it is so true. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like it's one of those stories that's just going to resonate more, hopefully, as we look back at a terrible time that is long over, but
yes,
but it, like, speaks to this time, and I'm sure it will speak again to another situation because it
yeah.
it
It's
seems to
it's like a
resonate.
Yes. So I have people who really love it, but not everybody, which is totally fine.
Well, I
But
could see some people being, like, completely freaked out a little bit, yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm scared. There wasn't as much of what I think are the hardest edits, right? Like I think when you're editing, the question that you had about when you get stuck in a corner, that does happen to me. But then you're like stuck logistically and you're like, okay, this is not going anywhere. That didn't happen in the story. Like the flow of it was there early and there might have been tweaks, but this sort of shape. So all the edits were easier edits, like more like little things uh,
Right.
versus other stories.
Okay, so when she first sees who she thinks is her ex-boyfriend, from the back
Mhm.
or whatever, and then he doesn't have an accent, and so she's like, "Oh, it totally can't be him." But then I started to think, has he become so Americanized that he doesn't have an accent anymore? Is it really him? But then you do clarify it's not him, and why did she even think that? And she has such complicated feelings in that moment about him. So where were you? I guess I want to know, what were you thinking? What were her thoughts about him? Because I couldn't quite tell. She lets him go so quickly. She's obviously outraged at the idea that they weren't even trying the first time. So what's he even talking about? So I'm curious. What do you think
Yeah,
she thinks of him?
I love how you describe that moment. That's the beauty of fiction, I think film as well. You can have these things feel like something emotionally and not be it, right? Which is
Right.
so lovely.
It's
Um,
like when someone dies and you see the back of them
yeah.
passing in a street or something.
Yes, and then as a fiction writer, you can play and choose what the real in the story is.
Yeah.
Have this somebody think of it, and the way you described it was great. You can decide what actually happened, but you have all this stuff.
Right, and you had several moments there. It wasn't just like she saw him once. She sees him a couple times and has, like, different reactions in those couple of minutes. So you
Yes.
staggered it, yeah.
Yeah, so I think for so here is a change that happened. Like some of the roommate and the boyfriend, he'd never kind of showed up live, like on the present
R
timeline, but there was
right,
a little bit more of the roommate in previous drafts that I sort of cut back a little bit. But I feel like he, one thing I wanted was he's not like bad, like a bad boyfriend, which could be a different situation. Uh,
right. He didn't seem bad.
So it was something true and lovely, but it just can't happen anymore because it's just too much sadness that was
Too
happening.
much pain, yeah, too
Yeah,
many memories.
and it's something lost that it spoiled the thing, and I think that came from that how I was feeling when I approached the story because I really was very upset, very sad. I wasn't, like, laughing when I wrote the story
No, I'm
before,
sure.
you
Yeah.
know? But as I'm writing, I'm like, "Oh, this is so funny that I'm finding because that's not how when I sat down to write, that wasn't
Right. I
uh,
mean, that's a great thing because I feel like, just personally, I write poetry too, and I haven't written many short stories during this period because I feel like I've lost my sense of humor. So
yeah,
I'm really happy to hear that the humor just found its way in there. You didn't even know it was coming and it
yeah.
just appeared. That's cool.
I was very grateful for it, because I did write the story. The story had to be sad,
Mhm.
uh, but I was very happy that to have the funny with the sad.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's good balance.
Yeah.
Like the temptation might be to just rant the whole time or just be really sad, but people can't take that, I guess. So it's nice.
Yeah. And it finds a way to come in this story if you let it instead of, it comes in different spots. Like even as you pointed out, the relationship with the boyfriend doesn't have to be sad for the same reasons why I'm sad as an author. You know what I
Right,
mean?
exactly.
But it comes out in different places that
Yeah,
compound within the story. Yeah.
that's very cool. Okay, so as they get towards as she's eating the last few. There's the guy with the MAGA hat, and I love the fact that she, that he infected her basically with the anger. And then that's just so unfair, and she didn't even get to chomp on him. Like, she didn't even get a good bite because he was gross. And then the miniature child resembling her baby, and the one where it might be her with the mop, but you never, again, you allow for the reader to read into it whatever they want. So at the end of the story, I was taking away from it, and I could have read it wrong, that she's consumed the American culture, and she's done her best to like swallow her grief and the loss and the loneliness, and it's basically destroyed her. It's made her American in that she can also be put into the vending machine and consumed by somebody else. But then in the book, there's more. And do you feel like, okay, I'll just ask you, I mean, that's it for her in the story. That's the end. I mean, someone else is going to pick her up and consume her.
Even her, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe she was already in there with the mop before, and now she's back.
Yes. So I love, first of all, great. Like, I love how you described it, and I feel like in this story and in general, when I have something like this, when I write, I think the thing you said, the abstract interpretation of the metaphors and stuff, it is that, but it isn't. It is that and other things, and it's fuzzier, right? So there's happens in the actual story, and those things happen, but it also is. It's weird because that's what happens to her, but also that's what happens to everyone, right? Like all those little Americans, they all been in that same so
they've been wrapped in their own individual.
Right. And I don't know like what their particulars of the situation is, but it's such a lonely moment in the end, but it's also such a communal moment.
Right.
Really everybody as well. So that's what I love about how it worked out with this very loud metaphors. But if you go and try to put point like 1-to-1, there's points where that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's kind of like the suggestion of all of those things, which is why I don't write an op-ed, right?
Well, and also, yeah, exactly, because you have to stay on point and go from, A to Z. I hate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that, and it's a lot of different things as well.
If you look into the face of someone, if you look into their eyes, if you spend too much time in their circumstances, for instance, like with the ultrasound technician was always just a bit player. And then when she becomes very important in the one scene.
Yes. So, I love that. See, all these things get connected. And then it's the
string, like a spider. Yeah. Like a spider web.
Yeah, and it's like almost like a womb as well. So she's kind of gestating this little bag, which also links to the baby and links to all the people. So it's like a web of images and meanings that kind of get connected in different ways. One thing about this story is that there's a whole layer speaking to Brazilian literature.
Yes, I know exactly because of the name. And so I was going to bring that up. Go ahead.
Yes, which is really fun because I'm very happy when people know nothing about that and get something very beautiful and profound from the story. And when people know, it's also super fun. So I love that because whether or not I actually really like,
Did that, I want to know before you tell us, did that come to mind? Or did the story came and the whole time in your back of your head, you're thinking about say it again.
I should have anthropologia is the name of the movement.
Yeah.
It's a very long name, so it's not.
Yeah. No, say it one more time.
Anthropologia, but I think the way they talk about it in the theory people or literature talk it's like the cannibalist thing.
They said, I looked it up. Is this right? In 1920s Brazil, Fagia, sorry, it's so bad, was also a metaphor for culturally devouring European influences, digesting and remixing them to create something uniquely Brazilian, ideas that were laid out
Oh,
in
that's good. You like found all this stuff. Exactly. That's good.
Okay.
So it was talking to all of that, but you don't have to know any of that stuff. But if you do,
No.
have fun too.
It
Um,
it's so much it adds a whole whole 'nother layer.
so yeah, so he was talking about it was communicating with this whole thing, which no, I should have seen it when I started writing it, but I didn't see it until like close to the end. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm
I
doing.
mean, that's amazing. I mean,
But
that's almost creepy. Like,
this
it's
is so
crazy,
great.
right? It's like
It's
the
like, oh my
universe.
gosh. And then I gave it the title. I'm like, this is amazing. But the thing
Wow.
is that I thought it was so lovely that how it talks to it, because the movement in Brazil, which was in the 20s, and then there was a sort of a revival with tropicalismo, the tropicalismo.
Yes.
This
Yeah.
60s, they talk to each other. And just like you read, it's about digesting European culture in the first time and then American and European in the second time. So this is what it's about, right? But then if you
But you're digesting it, you're taking it in, but you're, like, infusing it with your own culture as well. So
very yes.
it wasn't seen as a bad thing to do at the time.
It was a claiming, it was a empowering movement. It was like
Okay.
instead of saying, "Hey," instead of an outright rejection, it was like we take what we want and we do what we want with it. You
Nice.
know?
I love
So
that.
that's kind of what it was, and it was
Yeah.
also it was a sort of anti-colonial thing, but it was also very joyful. It was most of the work you see. It's funny, it's absurd, it's like out there, you know. When it happened in Brazil, it was lots of artists together doing shenanigans together. It wasn't like, oh, I'm so sad in my house, you know.
Nice. Yeah, there was a
It was
communal
really good.
feeling. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
and
with
kind of like celebration, and people are like proud. They don't think, oh, I'm imitating European. They think I do better than the European.
I
You
took
know?
a little piece from
Yeah,
there, but I'm gonna make it
exactly.
even better. Yeah.
So it's a very sort of empowering position. Um, but I was very sad, and also the immigrant situation. It talks very nicely because it's like back home, it's a happy thing, but here I'm alone in this environment.
Right.
So it became
And it's almost, in this environment, you're just overwhelmed by the American culture and Americans and
and
right?
it's
It's too much. It's too much.
right. It's
Yeah.
like a hostile environment
Hostile.
then and now. I mean, always, but like very heightened and visible, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and you're alone, and you know you're about to something bad is gonna happen. It's just a different situation, but I loved how he talked to it, and it's similar, you know, like when you are an immigrant anywhere, there's a lot of things that you know that are only in your head, but they're actually not only in your head. There's millions and millions of people who know what you are thinking and what you're talking about, but they're not here. So
They're
here,
not here. They're nowhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it speaks to that kind of thing very well. And then the other thing is the those movements, they were always about eating and cannibalism. And I thought that through this story, because this sadness came through the miscarriage, there's a lot of imagery of pregnancy and this kind of thing, which I think works very well with the imagery that they have there, which is this digestion, but they produce something, you know?
Yes,
And it
yes. Oh, that's perfect.
yeah, and it all happens inside your body, and it takes a little bit of your proteins or whatever to
Yeah.
do this thing.
And
Uh,
then she has the thing because she got pregnant because she got sick. She had that
yeah,
Americanized
yeah,
stomach and
which
yeah.
is also like a food thing, you know, like so.
Right.
All these things, it's not like I sit and I'm like, oh, let me connect all these things. But I feel like if you let your images and your things that you're interested in sort of come out without trying to direct them too much, you end up with all these images talking to each other in very fun, complex ways. because you thought about these things before, right? So they are connecting in there somewhere. But for me, at least, if I let it come through the story and through the image versus me thinking of the message, then it's gonna do all these things that I didn't expect.
And I cannot tell you how many people have said that I've talked to on this podcast about that, having that light touch and allowing all of it to sift together and produce what it's going to produce. It's almost like throwing a bunch of stuff in your mixing bowl and mixing it together and allowing whatever comes out to come out. Because I think a lot of times when people are learning to write short stories, they're very, they know the POV and they know the tense, they know everything, and they try and control it too much. And there is something mystical happening because you wrote this entire story and you weren't even thinking about the whole history, the Brazilian history, and it feel like that's synchronicity or something strange.
Love
Yeah.
but it's the thing that's why, like, and your fellow poets who, you're walking around and you see something and you like write down this little note that is like 2 words long or something. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
and then you write something else, and then you are thinking of these things, they're all there somewhere, and they'll come out, and then they come out and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so surprising, which it is, but you have been collecting them.
Yeah. So you don't sit down to write every day. You're just thinking while you're walking. I think you said, are you a runner too?
Oh yeah, very slow.
Okay. But I'm impressed because I'm only walking.
No,
So,
no. I'm like I run slower than you walk, seriously.
no.
It's
But
just
I
the
think it's so,
mouse.
yeah, but you get your heart rate up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But then are you not listening to anything? Are you just thinking the whole time?
I usually do. So I feel like that's one of the things I used to like be worried about, be stressed about, but now I know this right every day is never gonna be me, never gonna happen.
But does
You
it build
know?
up in you like a sort of a
Yeah.
pressure? Yeah.
It builds up, and I notice things, and it's like they slowly sort of accumulate and talk to each other in my head in a very sort of like background way.
Yeah.
Many times things that I know there's something there, I have no idea why. Like I'm like, oh, that's so funny. This thing with this thing is so interesting or funny or whatever. Don't know
Yeah.
why I can articulate it, but I'm like, oh, I should keep this in mind.
Yeah, yeah. Just
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing for me. I feel like another good development for me as a writer was to pay attention more to those things. So it's like, oh, something about this picture, about this juxtaposition tickles something. So let me
Yes.
know that
I
and
think that
like keep it. Yeah.
do you know the writer Jenny? So I always want to say Jenny O'Feel, but it's
Mhm,
Jenny,
mhm.
but it's actually Jenny Awful.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's so
Isn't that
funny.
funny? I was
I
like,
love
"Are you
it.
sure that's it?" But yeah,
I
I
love
think that's how she says it. Anyway, she said, that she really trusts those. I think she'll even, like, go into a library or a bookstore, and she just trusts where her instincts take her, and whatever she follows, whatever has caught her attention. I forget the word she used, but whatever spark catches her,
I
and then
love
she'll
it.
just follow it.
That's so
So
cool because I love her stuff, so that makes sense to me.
yeah, I do too. I do too. I know we're going over our time. Is there anything about this story in particular, before I ask you two things about the future and what you're working on? Is there anything about this story that we didn't cover? I know we couldn't cover everything. Um, well, there is one thing. I mean, it's astonishing to me that the news comes on, I think 3 times. It comes on later in the story, and it doesn't overwhelm the story. It's like background noise, but very vicious
Mm,
background noise. And that could have taken place yesterday. I'm just curious about, like, sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll say, I don't want anything that will tie this story to this particular moment. Was that a tough decision? Were you wondering, should I say the word Fox News or should I just say news and angry you know what I mean? I mean, I loved that you just said it because it's happening and everybody knows it's happening, and we might as well just say it, because what else are we doing if we don't? Call it out. Call it out. Say it.
Yeah. So I think part of, I don't know, this great things that I've discovered is I don't really worry about this kind of thing. Like whenever people say like don't do,
Will it
I
last forever?
I don't even worry about this stuff at all. But so in this case, it was pretty, like I could imagine somebody complaining about it if, like at workshop or something, you know. But I was like, oh no, this is totally fine. And I think that is because I wasn't dwelling on it for a long time. I think that people, the picture is very specific. You know, those are very angry TV heads. It's not like
they really are, and
they're
and
very
you could,
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you could if you had a problem, like if you were
Yeah.
reading it and you were having a problem with it. It's very, very short, and you could almost miss it, or
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. It's
in
a
the way that you want to remain.
quick way to get there. You know what
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean? It's like very specific newscast, right?
Yes, it
But
is.
yes, but I can imagine if I wasn't, if I was actually spending more time with it, it would be fun. Not in this story, but in other story, I might not put it, not because of what people say. Oh, you don't want to date it, whatever. I'm not really that concerned about this.
Yeah.
Um, but more because it's fun. Like I can
Yeah.
imagine a story where you don't mention who it is, and there's a feeling of wink, wink, where the reader and you know, but you kind of don't know. I
Right.
It's a fun thing if you're playing with that, you know.
Yeah.
But Sisa wasn't.
It
Yeah,
was like one or two, details that would every American would know what you were talking about, right?
right, right,
But those angry heads, they could be anywhere because I'm sure
right,
that program is running in every country.
right. It's like a
Yeah.
franchise. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I were so there was the other things going on in the story that I wanted to follow, right? But if I wanted to play with that shared, I love playing with what the reader knows and the writer knows that maybe it's not said. Like I love that space.
Yes.
But I think if I spend time there, it would kind of derail something that was already going on. You know what I mean? In this
Yeah.
story. So in a different story, I think that's super fun to play with. Another thing that I mentioned before, a couple of times now, there's stories where I don't mention like Brazil. And I just say where she was from or whatever.
Right.
And usually it's fun. I'm like, oh, this is fun. You know, it's like a purpose.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think not mentioning, saying that the famous singer, the famous whatever can be fun. But I think only if you're doing it because you're
Yeah,
playing.
you do have the famous singer. What is
Yeah,
her what's
yeah.
I wrote her name down, but now what is her name again? Because I didn't know her.
Which one? Carmen Miranda, Anita.
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 Anita. Yeah,
Yeah,
and she's huge.
she's
She's
huge.
huge.
It's so
Yeah.
fun. So I think these things you can go either way. You can mention them and have fun with that, or you can not mention and have fun with that. But I think there's no hard rule for me. It's like, what is
Well, and there was the other scene where, okay, so the child drops the cup and then the woman tries to talk to her, but it was in Spanish, right?
yeah, yeah.
And I was like, was that a little wink wink too?
Exactly. And then it's like in the hospital, of course, we do have lots of people who speak Spanish as well, right?
And then they just assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they just assume, and then it's like, yes, there's that. And then I think that talks a little bit to the DMV bit in the book too, where
Yes.
it's like some of these things, they're not that bad. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
They compound. It just depends on the rest of the story, you know? That's
Well,
exactly,
I think it's like a compounding of
exact,
these
exact,
moments, right? That could really wear you out.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then in the there, but more in the DMV moment. I like having these things. The good thing about a collection or a body of work is that you can touch on something and like hold it and explore it elsewhere, right?
I love that.
Which
That's
is
what's so great about a linked short story collection because you could tell it from different perspectives or get,
it's liberating.
pan in or pan out.
Yes, yeah.
So what are you working on now? I want to make sure to ask you.
Yeah, so I'm working on two things there. in a fun stage, especially the novel. So I'm working on a novel very slowly. It's going to take a while, but it's at a fun time for me at this novel. I feel like I'm going to have logistical difficulties soon, but right now it's in a fun time. And it is set between Iowa City and Chicago is one thread, and there's an amnesiac ghost that visits the cars. It's really fun, and a lot of play with like time as a dimension, this kind of thing.
Yay!
Really
Oh,
fun.
I love that.
It's really fun. And then the other thread of the same novel is in Chicago, and the character that is the main character of this thread is a photographer who works with architecture and around architects. And eventually this photographer will pick up the ghost, and there'll be a so here's
like on the film. On the film?
It's gonna pick up. I don't know exactly the logistics of the pickup yet. But
do you watch TikTok?
no,
I mean, I should.
Yeah.
I shouldn't, but like it's good for things like that where you get onto a thread where, you know, someone's following a ghost or someone's going back into their past life. And I think, how can every writer not use this? Because it's so good.
It's so fun, right? And like, there's lots of cool things. And there's a couple of things that I really am energized by creatively, which is architecture, especially mid-century architecture, and this sort of time thing. So both of them are coming together.
So the mid-century art, and okay, so mid-century, because that reminded me of in the story when they're watching the 60s show. Is that Mad Men?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So visually, see, I had forgotten about that. That's right. Exactly.
Yes.
Because I come from Brasilia, right? So there's also the bit in the Guggenheim and the collection. I come from Brasilia, where the architecture is very, very heavily mid-century modernist Brazilian style. Lots of concrete, lots of like weirdness. And then when I moved to Chicago, it's different, but there's so much mid-century here too. It was very energizing to me. So those two things are going in the novel. Super fun right now. And then I also have a poetry collection that is like about vision, perspective, like the parallax effect. I was going to call it parallax, but then a very good friend who's lovely and very smart and good, her book came out and it's called Parallax.
No.
Which is so
no.
Good. Get me to a new title. Also, I saw somebody else with the parallax. I'm like, okay, we're going to name this.
It's got to be something else. So who is that with someone right now? Or are you just sending it out at this point?
No, I'm not finished with either one.
Okay.
But the poetry collection is closer because it takes long, like it's shorter, but also I've been working on that particular project for longer. So how do
you decide which one? Do you just sort of get a feeling which one you want to work on a certain day?
It's pretty much based on like procrastination. If something is fun, I'm like, type it up. And then I'm like, oh, this became a drag. Let me escape a little bit of this.
Right.
And then I do the thing until it becomes a drag. Then I'll go in and the first thing then becomes really fun again.
That's how I do it too. And I mean, that's great, right? You get a lot done as long as you have 3 or 4 things going at the same time. You can never run out of ideas.
Exactly. See, like you understand because you're doing like multiple. Yeah. It's really good. It works.
So are you teaching too as well?
I teach like I work at Story Studio here in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So I teach with them sometimes, but I mostly sort of help put things together, like bring teachers and stuff. And I do teach more like in the summer, this kind of thing right now. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much. I could keep talking forever, but we have really gone over. I think maybe this is the longest I've ever gone. No, but I was just so fascinated. Thank you so much.
Great. And like, thank you for reading so beautifully.
Oh my gosh. Well, I cannot recommend this book enough. It's amazing. You can read the story first if you want to, but I suggest you read the whole book.